and welcome back to the show. It is always a pleasure to hear about our next guest's travels.
Yeah, man, is she well-traveled. And she likes coming on our show just to have proof that she actually did stuff when she was there. Hadani Ditmars joining us, writer, author, and she was just in London, pre-Olympics, talking about architecture and the tube system. I would imagine in London, pre-Olympics is probably a bit of a nightmare.
It's an Olympic event, I think. It should be
really?
Just getting from A to B.
Yeah.
Was it getting pretty crazy? Because you left, what, 10 days ago?
Yeah, it was getting pretty crazy, but I think I mastered the tube system. I mean, I've been a Londoner at different times in my life, and so it takes a couple of days.
I don't know what it is. The tube makes sense to me. The New York subway does not.
Oh, really? New York is, I find, the easiest one ever.
No,
okay, let's talk about London
yeah.
and what you saw when you were there. So let's focus on London architecture first.
Well, I was there for the London Festival of Architecture. I was the only Canadian invited to present, and I did a presentation on Vancouver's built environment at the Royal Institute of British Architects bookshop. And it was at the Centre for the Built Environment. We need one of those here.
There's a Centre for the Built Environment?
There's a Centre for the Built Environment in London. And dear Peter Murray, who started this festival as a biennale, it's now going to be an annual event.
Oh, great.
I hope that Canada will be better represented next year because they have this
I'm sure you did a fine job.
fabulous international showcase, and there was like Namibia and Taiwan, but Canada was conspicuously absent.
But is there an interest in terms of what's happening here on the world architectural scene and what's happening in Vancouver?
There was a lot of interest in Vancouver, actually. It was a really well-attended event, and I was introduced by Kumar Gupta from Canada House, and Simon Anderson was there from Canada House, so we had some diplomatic representation. And Peter Murray came and, you know, said a few words, and I gave him some maple candy.
How Canadian of you.
Johnny.
Okay, let's talk about some of the buildings that you showed off from Vancouver.
Well, yeah, it was sort of it was a 35-minute PowerPoint presentation, so it was historical and also looking at sort of future projects. So it was a lot of fun to put together.
And you were talking about our post office here?
Well, actually, I did include a shot of the McCarter-Nairn building, which actually, a lot of people don't know this, there's a helipad and also an underground tunnel.
So James Bond.
Come on, in our post office?
It could double as a James Bond film set.
Did the tunnels serve a purpose, or?
It was originally built, I think, to transport the mail to the railway.
Ah,
and
now
then,
it's just used to hide mail.
Who knows what goes on in that tunnel now?
Museum of Anthropology, always a sort of iconic building in Vancouver, and you talked about it in
That's
London.
right. Well, there's a beautiful shot of Arthur Erickson's fabulous Museum of Anthropology, which finally got its pond, its aquatic element.
He would talk about that all the time.
decades.
Whenever people asked him about that building, he would always say, it's not finished, it's not finished.
It is now finished, a little bit late, but thank goodness we had the
beautiful
foresight to do that. And of course, his museum is in my book, The Wallpaper City Guide to Vancouver. So the presentation was also a little bit of a launch in London for the Wallpaper City Guide to Vancouver.
Nice.
And you showed off our Woodwards building as well?
Yes, the Enriquez Woodwards building was there as well. And a lot of interest in that in terms of how, you know, you can have a sort of historical facade and then, of course, more modern buildings within that.
And workable gentrification, does that come into it at all, or does it matter? It's just architectural?
Yeah, we didn't have too much time to get into the larger social discussion, but maybe next year, if someone funds the Canadian showcase, we can get into that.
And lots of interesting things happening at SFU as well. I mean, obviously the building itself and the whole campus is pretty iconic and another great example.
Yeah, that's a shot I took at Arthur Erickson's memorial, actually. But I grew up on Simon Fraser campus, and in fact, there's a photo of me on, you know, in the comment, the student.
Is that you?
Magazine. That's right. That's me on the left. I'm not the blonde. I'm the brunette. It was a very sort of psychedelic split image of there was an orchestra playing on that same plaza,
really?
And I went to the original hippie daycare, and that shot just before there was of the new daycare, which is the greenest daycare in the world.
Wow,
apparently.
I didn't know that. That's crazy.
What makes it green? Just everything, all the materials, and.
Well, it's a Condon Marler design, and yeah, it's using BC wood and lots of sustainable features. I believe it's beyond Bleed Gold, or it's part of the Living Building Challenge.
Let's hop across the pond and talk about London. The new big building is a Shard building. Tell us about this. What is it like in person?
Well, I was actually there for the unveiling of the Shard, and that was quite an event.
So many jokes running through my head right now. The unveiling of the Shard.
It is beautiful.
It is quite stunning.
It is, actually. It was controversial, of course. Yeah. So I did a little blog for Azure, for our national architecture magazine. You can read online my thoughts on the Shard. But, you know, I think because it's on the South Bank and other sort of tall, iconic, unusually shaped buildings like the Gherkin are in the city. It's standing alone. It's really, you can see it's sort of like this orphan tower. So it'll take a while before Londoners get used to it. But the main issues were about the historical skyline view corridors. You know, in St. Paul's, does it respect that? Because St. Paul's was sort of liberated from these ugly mid-century concrete tower blocks.
And what's your opinion on that?
The view was opened up, and now, I mean, it doesn't obscure the view, but if you're on Parliament Hill in Hampstead Heath, looking towards the city, you see St. Paul's, and then you see the Shard sticking up behind it.
Yeah,
true.
Little cheeky.
Is this the nature of architecture sometimes, though? I mean, you know, truly great architecture that's sort of built to last and become iconic should take a little bit of time to wrap your head around and understand. It's like great art, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes the most challenging pieces become the most iconic.
Well, there were all kinds of criticisms, and a lot of them were not very architectural. You know, they said, oh, it's a symbol of corporate greed, and the fact that there was mainly Qatari interests in it economically, you know, oh, it's foreign domination, blah, blah, blah. But actually, it was the brainchild of Irvine Seller, who was from, you know, the East End or something. So,
plus, this is the great history of Britain as well, right? I mean, there's always been foreign influence in all their building, and as they've gone along, So yeah, no, I think actually it's going to just take a while for people to get used to having that very dramatic
and then it'll
shape
be the
on the
iconic
skyline.
A big Shard
that they would never want to have. Yes, Michael, a big Shard. Let's talk about dancing in Trafalgar Square.
Oh, right. I think there's the photo here that I took of this amazing choreography.
Is that a flash mob?
No, it was a piece that Wayne McGregor of the Royal Ballet choreographed as part of this big dance series that is part of the Cultural Olympiad.
Yeah.
I met the head of the Cultural Olympiad. He was a very down-to-earth fellow, very approachable, and they're doing a lot of interesting stuff. The big dance is just one of, you know, dozens of projects where they're really engaging with public space and with architecture. And this big dance that I took in 2 weeks ago was actually in Trafalgar Square, right across from the National Gallery and from Canada House, where I got to
hang out
for Canada Day. And it was quite extraordinary because it was a mix of amateur and professional, young, old, able-bodied, handicapped, black, white. And, you know, at one point, it resembled actually what it's like to be on the tube at rush hour.
Right, but in dance as you go.
And I thought, oh, this really captures the spirit of London. But, you know, it was also like, oh, it's chaos, but it's all going to work out in the end. So I took it as a good omen for how the Olympics
we're just about out of time, but really quickly, one of the other things that you were doing when you were there was a quick meeting, interview, feature for Vancouver Magazine on our ex-premier, now attaché in London, Gordon Campbell.
Oh, yes, I got to have coffee with Gordon.
How is Gordo?
How'd that go?
You know, he's really blossoming in his new role. He's a real bibliophile, so he loves the fact that, I mean, he's in love with London, basically. He loves going to bookstores. So he's, you know, the press attaché said, well, you know, if we ever lose him, we just look in Foyles or Hatches.
Right, he's there.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting.
And it is a great city for bookstores.
And are you doing a profile?
So when will we see the feature in Van Meg?
Oh, probably this fall. You'll have a look at that. Yeah.
Good.
Well, Hadani, we always love having you back to hear about your travels. Where's next?
Well, I've been invited by the Canadian Consulate in New York to go to the Brooklyn Book Fair because I'm working on a new book on Iraq, on ancient sites. And then also sort of the Vancouver Wallpaper City Guide, etc. They want to do something with that. So hopefully we'll be in New York in September and then back to London in October en route to Baghdad.
Nice.
Inshallah, inshallah.
Subject
to funding, subject to funding.
Hadani, nice to see you. We'll see you again soon. Of course, as we mentioned, Hadani did the wonderful Vancouver Wallpaper book. Gag book.
The Wallpaper City Guide to Vancouver.
Wow.
Yeah. It's hard to say.
Oh, somebody help me. HadaniDitmars.com is where you can look it up. We're going to take a quick break.